Hello, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast. It is literally 3 days away from the first Chicago snow of the year. And I'm just like, holy fucking shit. Like, winter is here. The cold is upon us. And I actually just went to an incredible little brunch with a client that lives in Chicago and also with Lexi. And we were just doing like a lot of reflecting of this like last year, because I've mentioned that 2025 has been quite a transformative year for me. And I don't know if like anyone else ever like experiences this, but you know, when you like think about your life and you like go back to like a time and you're like, I feel like this month or this week or like this event like changed things or pivoted things. Mine was like last year, October, November. And a lot of things were just like transpiring into last year that I think kind of, I don't know, just kind of like formulated. And I think December through 2025, like everything completely shifted for me and changed for me. And I know that you guys are like nosy Nancy's. And it's fun to kind of get a little bit of like behind the scenes of my business and my life and everything else. So I thought in this kind of episode of spilling the sauce, I would spill a little bit of the tea as well of like what the fuck happened last year and like how it completely altered the course of my life, my like just feelings of things that were happening in my life, and then also my business. And I hope that you guys enjoy this. So in order to kind of encompass all the shifts, I really like was thinking about kind of three main areas of pivots last year. And I think the most obvious one is Brendan, the man of my life, the partner of my existence at this moment, and most likely forever, but you know, just we'll get to that in another conversation, I guess. Also, I do want to clarify that this is not a wedding ring or an engagement ring. First of all, absolutely not. This thing is like 25 cents, but I do always wear a ring on this finger. So no, I'm not engaged. If you see any posts about that, I would absolutely not be wearing a small ring, fake ring to announce my engagement and not say anything about it. No, I'm not engaged, but I am in obviously a very incredible, very healthy, very wonderful relationship with now a man that I live with, which is like totally different. And that did not transpire last year. Like that didn't necessarily, like we didn't start living together last year, but last year, November was actually when I started to realize that we were heading in this direction of having to decide if we were gonna like live together or move in together at some point, because that was when I started thinking about like, okay, next year's 2025, I'll be 3 years in business. We'll be at a year of dating at that point. We started dating like the spring time. So we were like 7 months in, like this was a very early conversation. And I realized, I'm like, wait a second, if I wanna move, let's say in like 2026, because that was one of my thoughts. I was like, I'm gonna move in 2026. I said, we should probably figure out like what it would look like to live together. So one of the most important things about that was spending more time together, starting to like figure out like, you know, what that chapter was going to look like. And that also included at the time, and still actually now, it included me having to figure out how to navigate his dog. So Brendan has a dog, and if anyone knows me, I hate dogs. I just like don't understand. Can I just like go on a rant for a second? Please, dear God, can someone explain to me why you as a single person in your 20s or 30s say, oh, instead of having a lot of freedom to go do what I want when I want to do, or like I can go away for a weekend or whatever, you say, let me give me this expensive, hairy, nasty ass animal to put into my home that is going to destroy my furniture, like clog my vacuum cleaner, and also like it requires me to be so tied to my everyday like home situation that I can't just like leave for more than 4 hours a day. Like, why on earth did you find that smart? Like, I genuinely remember when Brendan and I started dating, I was like, the fact that you have a dog makes me think that you must be a fucking idiot, because whoever has dogs as a single person is clinically fucking insane. Like, I literally find you guys insane. I believe that to my core. I still believe that. And anyway, so when Brendan and I started obviously dating and talking more, I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do with this dog? And what's actually really funny is when Brendan and I started like really dating, like, you know, a couple months in, I did not know this. He talked to his dad and said, Ashley hates dogs. Probably in order for us to be successful in this relationship, I'm gonna have to give up my dog. And I did not know at the time that he was willing to give up his dog to be in a relationship with me, which is like really crazy. Some of you guys might find that as a red flag, a green flag. I don't frankly care what you think, but I see that as a green flag. I was like, wow, that's really incredible that he knows that I am so not into the dog thing. So this was like really like last summer going into like the fall of last year. Well, anyway, what's really funny to think about now in November compared to November last year was November was the first month that I was like, I need to learn how to not dream of this dog passing away suddenly, because that's how I was feeling. I was like, how long? I like literally one day Googled like, how long do dogs live? Like I was like, I can't do this. Like I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this dog thing. And so what I started doing is I was telling Brendan like, hey, like, why don't we have movie night at my place and like, let's put like the dog in the basement for a while or whatever. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, November, I think we had Winnie over like 4 different times. Every time she was over, I just started crying. Like, I need you guys to understand, this sounds so silly, but I loved my home. I loved my home. Even now in this space, our last piece of furniture came yesterday. I love it so much. My home is like a hotel. I like it clean. I like it crisp. I like it simple. I don't want hair anywhere. I just don't want the craziness that comes with like an animal. Whether you're a cat person, dog person, you have a fucking iguana, I don't even fucking care. Like, I just don't want it in my space. I don't like the chaos. I don't like the craziness. I just don't understand the pet thing. So it was very difficult because we'd be like downstairs and we'd be like watching a movie, and Winnie could not sit still. Like, she didn't know how to sit still. So she would like walk around and walk around and walk around. And all I heard was her like nails, like hitting the floor. And I was like, what the, like, who wants this? I want peace. I want quiet. I want chill. And this dog just wouldn't stop fucking walking around. Like, I was like, what is this happening? So anyway, so this is like, you know, we tried this for a couple of days, and it'd be like 2 hours here, 2 hours there. And then Brendan would be like, I feel like you're really struggling. I'm like, I can't do this. And he would like take her back and go home and whatever for the evening. So it was just kind of challenging. But what's really funny about like specifically last November is it snowed in St. Louis last November. And I remember there was one time where I think Brendan was like, do you want to watch the dog for like 3 or 4 hours? And I was like, okay, I can do this. So I actually, for the first time, I think had Winnie at my place, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put her in like the bathroom or something. I don't remember what I did, or downstairs. I put her somewhere, and I was like, Brendan, I'm going to go get my nails done. He's like, okay, no problem. Like, I'll be home from work. I don't remember like what the situation was. It was like a half day. He was gone or somewhere. He was going to be home in like an hour and a half. And I was like, I'm going to go get my nails done. And I remember this was just like one of the moments where Winnie's been over a couple times. Brendan and I are at this point where I'm like, I really want to, you know, love this dog. I really want to like try. And I remember being like in a really good mood that day. I don't know if we signed a big client, something happened that day, but I was like, I'm gonna go get my nails done. Winnie's being really good today. Like, this was after, of course, like a couple times of like me navigating this fucking situation. And I went and I got my nails done. Obviously, I'm a nail girl, you guys can tell. I got my nails done, and I remember driving home. I called Brendan. I was like, hey, you know, Winnie's been so good. Like, she's been like behaving better. Like, I just like, oh my gosh, she would yell at this dog so much to be like, pay attention, like behave, like Ashley's gonna throw you out the window type of thing. Like, she's really starting to be better. She was in a good mood. I was in a good mood. I'm getting my nails done. And I was like, you know, he's like, yeah, I'll be home in like 25 minutes. And I was like, okay, sounds good. All I remember is I went home, I parked my car, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna walk the dog. I'm gonna walk this dog and have her go to the bathroom. Because at this point we had like, we would walk her around like my neighborhood. And I was like, I'm gonna walk this dog, and Brendan's gonna come back, and like, she's already gonna be walked and like done, and I'm gonna be like, I did it all by myself, like whatever. Anyway, so I remember I'm walking outside, and I'm holding the leash, and I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. Like, I'm like, I'm trying. Like, this was like, you know, like 6th or 7th time hanging out with this fucking dog. And Winnie, as a puppy, because this was a year ago, so she was about 1.5 years old, she never really saw a lot of dogs, because when Brendan would walk her around his place, like, he walked her at times where I guess there wasn't like a lot of dogs being walked, or if the dogs were, they were like super far away. So if Winnie was ever at my house a couple times, she would look out the window and see like dogs walking, and she would get like freak out because they'd be so close to her. Because like, I lived in like this really, really nice area, and you know, I had a lot of retired people, not 25-year-olds with fucking dogs that have no business having a dog, like retired people who have like their family dog or their old kids or whatever. So there'd be like all these retired people walking around with dogs, or like young couples with families with dogs. So there were dogs walked all the time. Like, I saw dogs every 2-3 minutes down my street. So I remember I'm like walking outside, there is snow on the ground, and so it's slick, right? And I'm walking down kind of the entryway and into the grass, and I didn't realize until like a couple steps out that there's a dog starting to walk kind of like towards my house. Winnie sees the dog and immediately like sprints at it. And you guys, I'm holding I'm holding the leash. The leash like handle presses down right on my main nail and splits my nail like down like the fourth, like a fourth of it's just gone. And I look down, my bloody nail, Winnie's pulling me like, I'm just like, I felt it, I literally felt it like break off. I, by the way, had been home for 10 minutes. Like I just got my nails done, whatever. I literally come in, I put Winnie like down in this like room or whatever. I hop in my car and I call Brendan and I just start like yelling. I'm like, this fucking dog, I can't do it. Like I tried, today I tried. Like I'm being so dramatic, you guys, like whatever, anyway. And I literally have to go back to the nail place and they're like, oh my God, did something happen? Like, is everything, I'm like this, and they're like, oh my God. So to fix my nail, I come back, Brendan has like his own tail between his legs and he's like, I'm so sorry. Like she just probably got really excited and this and that. But anyway, so I wanted to like paint a picture of this was a year ago, me trying to get used to this dog. Obviously, I have spent a lot of time with her. I spent a lot of time with her in the spring. Like I'd, watch her for a little bit here or there. If Brendan was gone for the weekend, I'd like dog sit her or whatever. Because, I'm so committed to this man that I'm like, I have to learn how to not hate this dog. And to be very honest, I pretty much hated her until probably like 2 months ago. I really, really struggled with the idea of having this dog. Brendan, and I got to this point where I was like, I'm going to figure this out. Like I'm going to make this work. And when we moved to Chicago, it was very difficult to obviously have a dog in like our space. And so that was very new. So I think August was very difficult for me because I just had to like navigate it. Also, one of the biggest blessings of moving to Chicago is the fact that we do have a dog park in our building. That was something that we looked at. I specifically only looked at buildings that had that. And so our walk for her is like 20 minutes outside of the 10th floor of our building. And then we like can walk her out on this dog park and bring her in. So it's not like the most horrible thing, especially as we are going into winter in Chicago and I'm gonna have to navigate that. But the reflection though, in thinking about this is, even today when we got back from this like lunch, like Winnie is, licking my face and licking my hand and she's giving me a little hug and she's doing all this stuff. And Lexi kind of looks at me like what happened? Like what's going on? Because, I really did, a year ago, I was like, I genuinely was like, how, like maybe Brendan has to give this dog up. Maybe I don't think this relationship is going to work. Like I really, really struggled with this because I take a lot of responsibility and pride in anything that I do. My business, I take so much pride in my friendships, whatever. And with like an animal, like I don't want to half-ass an animal's life. Like I want, the dog to be loved. I want the dog to be fed well. I want this dog to be on a routine. Like I don't want like this dog to have a bad life. I might not like it, but I don't wish, like I don't have ill will towards the dog. But it's like kind of crazy to now think about that, once B had his long work days and he was kind of gone throughout the day or whatever. Like I was with her all day long. And most days I really struggled with that. But then there was days where I'm like, you know what? Like this is okay. Or like I would be just having a conversation with her about something in business. Like, I mean, she's a dog. She just sits there and has no idea what the fuck I'm talking about. But I've kind of grown to be like, you know what? Like this is my family. Like I have Brendan and I have Winnie and then we're here and we're doing this thing in Chicago and we're doing this together. And like, I take pride in like doing right by him and also doing right by this animal that lives in my space and whatever. And, it's very interesting because a year ago, I genuinely wish I just did not want her around. And I didn't know if this was going to be like a breaking point in our relationship. And so I think that's just like a testament to how much respect and care I have for my partner. And I am really proud of my growth in that department. Now, people will still ask me like, oh, now you like love having dogs? No, I genuinely still think it's clinically insane. And like, I very much wish that like I didn't have that as a situation, but I think it's, a lot of times in life where like, I probably would have done it differently, but like, I'm really happy with how it is now. Like, I'm not unhappy with the situation. It's definitely very hard. I don't like the lack of freedom that I have with Winnie being in my life because I like, even if Brennan's going to be home for the weekend, like who's going to take her? Like, she's not going to my parents. So like, what does that look like? So it's just like a different level of responsibility that I didn't necessarily ask for. She definitely is very distracting during the day. So like, I really struggle with that. So I wouldn't say that it's like something that I'm glad has happened, but I'm not unhappy with the situation. So it's been a lot of like a growth in that department. But interestingly enough, even when I told my parents that I was moving to Chicago, I was like, out of everything, they're going to be like, the dog? Like, this was such a point of like contention in my life. Like, so it's been a very big journey. And it's interesting because I've had conversations with people in my life and they're like, why do you think the last year has been so hard? And I'm like, because I've always had all of my freedom. I've never had someone tell me where I can go, what I can do, like when I can do it, whatever. I've never had to like come home to take care of someone or something. My entire life has been flipped on its head. And I'm not saying that I need a lot of grace for the fact that now I have this dog in my life, but it definitely has been like a massive, massive, massive change for me. And getting to know her situation and her feelings and her this and her emotions and her reactions and how she needs, her routine and whatever. Like it's been a totally new element into my life that actually has been extremely challenging for me. And you guys, like I run a really successful company and I do a lot of really challenging things every day, but this dog has been truly one of the hardest things that I've ever done. It's like getting to know this dog and love this dog and figure her out. And it's been a journey. It has been a journey. This last year has been wild. So the dog definitely was like, her in my life as a byproduct of being in a relationship with a man who has this dog. But that was, out of everything, like I was thinking about like what has changed the most in a year. And all I remember is walking out into that snowy area and Winnie sliding me down and breaking off a chunk of my fucking nail. Me trying to be like a good girlfriend, and this is what happened. So the dog was definitely like one of the biggest changes since last November. But of course, then my relationship with Brendan was also a big change. And what's really hard about anything in your 30s and anything in your life is that like we just are people with limited time. And I was saying this actually at brunch today with my girlfriends. I said, I've really come to realize that anything in life that is good also has its bad or its heaviness. Like we were talking about children and like, I've been very public about my feelings about like maybe not wanting children or not thinking that I am going to have children. I've shared that on the podcast pretty directly and very honestly, but I think children are one of the most wonderful things that you can probably do and they're life-changing and wonderful and what gifts. And I'm like all about motherhood and all the things. But it's just like not something I don't want for myself. Same with like being a business owner. I think business owners can be like great. Like I think there's a lot of like good things, just like being in a relationship is wonderful. But what comes with being in a relationship, even if you're not like, married, like there's not the legal document of like being in a married relationship, when you're living with someone, when you're building like a life with someone, is it takes a lot of your energy and time, especially in the newer phase. Anything that you do in the beginning, you play a lot of the volume game. There's like more conversations, more, feelings and emotions, more processing, more this. It's more all consuming, with the idea that as you get better and better at something, you can like lean things down and simplify things and be more effective. And I think in our relationship, the first year of dating, which in November was basically like the halfway point of our first year together, it was really just kind of trying to figure out like where we were going, because at that point we had really determined like, I feel like this is what we both want. This is like something we want to like really commit to long term. And when you're figuring that out, you start to make decisions that there's a lot of discussions. There's a lot of like conversations. And, Brendan did, in the best way, take up a lot of my time, but in the worst way, not in the worst way, but in like a heavy way, that was limited time. And when I entered into this relationship, a lot of my friends were married. A lot of my friends are in, different relationships. Like my best friend, had her second child last year. And, so she's going from one child, which is like one thing in itself, to two, which is like having like 50. Like it's a totally different thing. New energy, new vibe. I had another friend who, was thinking about having another baby. Like I had a lot of like people going through times where they were so tight on time and they were extremely busy. And then I'm for the first time actually becoming busy, because even as a business owner, my first 2 years, I was extremely, extremely available. So when Brendan started to become someone who like came over most nights, he would come over after work from like 6 to 10 and we'd like hang out. Like that was my evening. Or on weekends, like we were trying to, go out and do things. Like he became like a part of my life and a really big part of my life. And when you have limited time, you only just have so much energy for things. So a lot of this past year has been figuring out like how to find balance, because I'm learning how to navigate this dog. I have a business that I'll talk about here in a second of like that was changing significantly. I was also in a position where like, my best friend was now working in my business, and we had been doing that for a little under a year at that point, and like trying to figure that out and like how to make sure that was healthy and also prioritize the friendship. Because like when Lexi first started working with me, like a lot of the first couple months was like business, business, business. And I think I had a moment maybe that summer, or maybe I asked her about it or something, where we were like, we need to be better about discipline of friendship, because when we hang out, it's mostly about business and what I'm doing in this, because she's so well aware of what's going on. So it was like, I started to be more disciplined in that area. Like, I have friends with kids who have a very difficult schedule. And I found that November was kind of the last month of this last year of my life where I thought I like had my schedule figured out, if that makes sense. You know, when you like look back at, again, you like look back at times and you're like, I felt like I was like crushing it, and then something changed, but I don't know what changed. Something really shifted in like December. And again, I can't attribute it to like anything specific. I don't know if it was like holiday season. I don't know if it was, I don't really know, but I feel like in December, you know, something kind of just started to shift, where I started thinking differently about my time. I started thinking differently about like my goals. I was just like in this state of something was shifting within me, where I just really started to say like, I want to do things my way now. I think I need to like really be more selfish with my time. And again, there was no like specific incident that happened. It just really started to shift like end of last year. And I don't know what it was, but when I really think about last year, I think like, wow, I was really solid in like August and September. I had a really beautiful birthday party with my friends in August. In September, I felt like I was doing a lot of things with my friends. And October, I remember like going to do a bunch of stuff. Like, there was a lot of things going really, really well in my life. And then I think November, like obviously we're going into like the holidays, and that was the first holiday that Brendan came and like had Thanksgiving with my family. Obviously, well, any boyfriend, that was my first year with Brendan, so it would have been our first year regardless. But like, he came to the holidays with me. So then like now it's about like family, whereas I'm not really a big family person. So like holidays are not very family oriented for me. So there was like an integration of Brendan in my life and me also personally shifting of, maybe it was even the fact that like I was starting to date someone that I saw a future with, where I'm like, okay, I need to start thinking long-term. Maybe that's actually it, which is kind of what happened in the business too, where I wasn't just thinking 2 days down the road or a week down the road or a month down the road. I started thinking, what does it look like to prioritize in the next year? What are my goals in a year? Like, I just started thinking like more long-term. I think that's maybe a little bit part of it. And I think I kind of lost my way a little bit. And it wasn't that anything was bad. It's not that I like was a bad friend or I like abandoned anyone or didn't text anyone. There was just an energy where I stopped putting out as much as I was before. And also, just to give a little bit of context, prior to the end of last year, I also want to be very, very clear that I left a really massive sales organization a couple years ago. And there was like 10 different women that I called every month to check in on, to ask how they were doing, to like maintain the relationship. And all in the last year, really in like 2024, that was the first year where I was like, okay, what if I don't call this month? What if I don't call, like 2023, 2024, I kind of stopped calling those people and they never would call me. And I realized that the only reason that all these relationships were like holding on was because I was putting an effort to maintain them. So that was like, I think a really big thing. And maybe it just finally came to a head because now I had Brendan who was like actively pursuing me. And I had several other people in my friendship circle that were like actively pursuing me. And maybe that was just like the straw that broke the camel's back necessarily, of like, there was this energy shift that was happening where I realized I now had this person that I really wanted to prioritize that actually wanted to prioritize me as well. And I just kind of had to let things fall a little bit. And I needed to stop holding everything so together. And I think a lot of like really amazing women out there feel this way, where they're like the glue in all of their relationships. They like hold it all together. They maintain their relationship. They call people. And I went into 2025 feeling really solid, but also feeling for the first time a little selfish, because I just wasn't gonna pour into everyone else at the level that I had for so many years, which was interesting because on the opposite end, kind of the third major shift that was happening was the business, where I was like, I'm gonna pour into more people in the business. So again, thinking about limited time, when I went into 2025, we had made the decision at the end of 2024 to combine our two signature masterminds, which at the time was called DBM Architect and DBM Expansion. We changed systems. We combined the masterminds into one mastermind so that all my clients were finally together. But I kind of felt like I wanted like a lower tier of support for clients. And so we launched this program called the Headquarters. I came up with the Headquarters technically in January, but it was November and December where I started selling DBM at a little bit more of a premium price point. I started realizing like what types of clients I want. Like something was definitely shifting in the fall for the business. I think I started realizing that I was a pussy ass bitch, maybe like a little bit of that. And I still maintained being that honestly until like March of this year. There was something just like shifting. I had so many feelings around, I'm not working with the clients I want. I feel like everyone's underpaying me significantly. I'm pouring into all these clients. And I played a little bit more of the with game at the beginning of 2025 because of it. And that really started coming in like November. I realized that I was signing a lot of clients. I wasn't getting a lot of objections. The business was blowing up. And I also just really started to like realize that I like, long-term commitment. So we closed out a membership in October. We sold a shit ton of spots for DBM in November. And then we got to this point where I was going into 2025 with a brand new offer where I was hoping to take on 30 or 40 additional clients in this like 6-month kind of mastermind thing. So, even in the business, like I think what I really reflect on of last year was in 2022, 3, 4, my number one priority of my life was my friends and then the business, like in that order. And I think going into 2025, I was like, I wanted my friends to almost put me as the top priority. I was like, okay, my friends are going to be the same amount of priority, but I'm distributing that energy differently. And what would it look like to make Brendan top priority, business second, and then maybe friends kind of tied with the business? I don't really know like what the order was. There wasn't like this order, but I definitely felt like I was like, I'm going to prioritize myself and I'm going to let other people pour into me. And I think what ended up happening was everyone was kind of doing their own thing as well. And we all just kind of gotten to this point where people are doing their shit, that they're doing their stuff. They're focusing on their own thing. So it's been kind of an interesting last year of reflection. Obviously, November 2024, I was 6 months in a relationship. I lived in St. Louis. I had kind of started to realize that my friend dynamics were shifting. I also, was navigating Winnie as a part of my life. I was going through some things in my personal family bucket that were really, really challenging that I will not be sharing because that's not my news to share. But there were some really, really heavy things happening there. My friends were all kind of figuring out their lives. Like I had friends that had children. I had friends that were doing new things, quitting jobs. Like there's so much happening last year. And I went into December, holiday season, and the beginning part of the new year, just wanting to like not care about doing so much all the time. I wanted to create a solid relationship with Brendan. I wanted to create a solid business plan to expand or double or triple our revenue, which we ended up doing, which is incredible. And then we ended up closing headquarters. So that's like super funny. We closed that actually this November. So that offer lasted for a year. We had 6 months. We had a lot of renewals. Those clients are moving into an accelerator that we're going to be doing behind the scenes over the next 6 months. And it's just really interesting to see just the level of care that I have, while also the level of like, I don't give a shit. I really don't care much about what people are thinking about the decisions I've been making this year. I don't really feel the need to like people please my way into this next year of my life. I really don't worry about my relationship with Brendan. We're really solid. I love his dog in a weird way now, which is wild after a year. Just a lot has shifted. And when I reflect on like why on earth the things that have happened in the last year have happened, I think it's a level of commitment, deciding that commitment is a two-way street and knowing that some of the things that used to be important to me are people in my life. It's because I always would focus, pour my energy. And if I wasn't getting that back, I wasn't going to like over deliver to try to receive it back or like bring that relationship back into my life. So I let things kind of fall to the wayside, or I tried not to like own too much ownership of saving every relationship in my life. So that shifted a lot. I feel really solid about moving to Chicago. I think I needed to move to Chicago more than I even just wanted to move to Chicago. I think that this is going to change my business. It's going to change my perspectives. It's going to change my relationships, which has been very good. And I'm just like at also a place in business where I don't stress almost at all. I do stress here and there about revenue, but there's been months where we're like 4 or 5 days into the month and I'm like, sales aren't even close to where I want them to be. And I'm just like, they'll be fine. In fact, that was last October, I think, or this October, last month, was not kickstart very well. And it ended up being one of our best months in business ever. Like I really just feel a lot of like safety in now where I live and this decision to live here, who I'm with, the decisions that we're making for our little mini family, which include the dog staying and living with us and being with us. And I feel a lot of safety in my business. And, I will never be the person where I say like I do everything right in life or I'm like, all knowing or, the most wise human being. But when I can like look back at a year and say, I don't really regret the decisions I made. I feel really solid about the growth that I've had. And I really poured my heart into the things that like made sense at the time. Like, I think that's a pretty solid and successful year. But 2025, as I have said very publicly, at least 100 times, you've probably heard me say it, has 1000% been one of the hardest years of my life. And some of it is silly, like navigating a dog. Some of it is heavy, like parents having cancer or friendships being in weird places that don't make any sense and are really difficult to navigate, which is like one of the hardest things in the world for me when I have to like let things play out that I don't want to let them play out. But like, that's just part of what life is you have to let things happen sometimes the way that they're meant to happen. Even if you want to fix it or control it, you just can't. So there's like those elements that are also like really just heavy, but I think it's the duality of both. There's the silly things, there's the heavy things. There's just the fact that, we've had massive shifts in politics this year. I think I've had a lot more exposure to social media this year just because I've been back on TikTok this year. So that's been like a whole new thing. And just the industry I'm in is very like social heavy. So there are a lot of things that we all navigate. And 2025 has been a really tough one. I'll probably do more of a reflection video in December. But I did want to just share a little bit kind of a behind the scenes of kind of why maybe my energy's changed this year or maybe why I have not shared some of the things that I usually would share. Like, I don't even think people knew I was in a relationship until like last September, which is totally fine. It's no one's business necessarily. I don't feel any need to share things online because like I owe that to my audience. Like I will share what I want to share. But I kind of teased that I was in a relationship. I don't think anyone knew that he had a dog until this year because that was very out of character for me. And people didn't know I was moving to Chicago until I actually shared it in August when we had already like gotten our place and done those things. So there's been some things that I've kind of like kept close to me and some things I've tried to be more honest about. But the things that I have tried to be very transparent about on the podcast specifically is, what shifts I've been making, what I've been navigating, what I've been thinking about, like what my vision is for this coming year. And I think in order for you guys to understand why those things are happening or what we're doing and why we're doing them, it's helpful to kind of get a little bit behind the scenes of what this last year has been like. So very, very happy overall, like very settled while also feeling like a lot of like budding energy for what is coming. And I think you're going to see very loud, very bold, very visible By the Blazer, Full Plate of Pasta, Ashley Bennington. Like I think a lot is going to be coming. So stay tuned.